Hi guys, welcome back to Dreamcatcher Horsemanship. I have not been able to film any riding footage recently because we have had a lot of rain where I live and everything is just mud or puddles. Not super great for riding. My round pen's actually coming around, so I think I might try to film some riding footage today, but for this week's video, I wanted to sit down and do a tack talk with you guys because I haven't done one of these since I got my channel back up and running. So if you haven't seen a tack talk before, essentially this is where I clean a piece of my tack that badly needs cleaning, talk to you about random subjects in the horse world. This is a great time if you have tack that you need to clean. You could pull it out and listen to this while we clean our tack together, or if you're exercising and you want something to listen to, or you want to grab a snack and just chill and watch the video, it's totally up to you, but this is going to be more of a chatty video, so yeah. Before I get started today, I just wanted to show you what I'm using. I'm cleaning my Western saddle, one of my Western saddles today. This is the saddle that I use primarily on Chief and Annie, and then I just want to show you the reason I was inspired to do this is because it's been so humid here lately that my leather tack has started doing this. So yeah, this is not a green piece of tack. This is all mold. And this is what happens to leather tack when it's in an environment that's not climate controlled and it's been extremely humid. So I want to get these cleaned to get some leather conditioner on them and make sure that they stay in good shape because, as we all know, tack's expensive, so it pays to keep them well cleaned and taken care of. So before I start, I'll show you what I'm using today. I just have one of these little tack cleaning sponges. I have a block of leather soap, and then I just have a little bowl of clean water. That's it. I'm not going to use any oil today because I typically only oil my saddles like not during the riding season because they do get kind of slippery, so I don't like riding in them after they've been oiled. So I'm just going to clean it today, and then I'll wipe everything down at the end with some paper towels just to make sure it's nice and dry. And yeah, without further ado, I'm going to get started cleaning my saddle. The topic of today's video is going to be how I got into riding and sort of like my young riding years, how I got Chief, all of that, because I don't think I've really ever talked about it on my channel. I think I've talked briefly about my story getting Chief, but either way, all those videos have been deleted, so I thought for new subscribers this would be a good way to kind of introduce myself to you a little bit, and my old subscribers, if you have seen this before, it'll just kind of refresh your memory about my backstory when it comes to horses. So I'll start off by saying that I don't come from a horsey family. My parents were not into horses. In fact, there is a well-told story in our family that when my dad held me for the first time, he actually said to my mom, I really hope she doesn't become one of those horse girls, because he'd had a couple girlfriends in the past who were horse people, and my dad was definitely not a horse person. So I don't know, it's kind of a joke that like that's why I ended up into horses, because my dad jinxed it. But essentially, I was interested in horses from a very young age, like a lot of young girls. I started asking for my first horse, or my first horseback riding lessons, I think when I was probably about 3, and continued to ask for a very long time, and I always got the same answer from my parents, and the answer was, no, it's too expensive, and no, it's too dangerous. So with that all said, I just continued to work away at them. Eventually what ended up happening was my elementary school, when I was 7 years old, they had this program where parents could sponsor like an after-school activity or conduct an after-school activity that was like off of school grounds, so something special. And there was a parent who taught riding lessons at a local stable that did trail rides, and she put together a little group to go and take kids out there to trail ride for the first time and try horseback riding for the first time. So my mom, I think at that point, had had enough of my begging, and she gave in and said that I could go try this one-time thing. I think she was thinking, because I was always a really cautious kid, that it would actually just end up scaring me, and I would never want to be around horses again. So I went on this trip, and I rode a horse named Chiquita, I think was the name of the horse. And it was like this little bay thing. I don't even know if it was a mare or gelding, to be completely honest. But I remember getting there, and we were brushing the horses, and my mom was right. I was terrified. I didn't want to ride the horse. I was like, no, I'll just stay here and groom the horses. And the lady was like, no, we got you out here. You're going to get up on a horse. And they did get me on a horse. And we went out for your very typical trail ride where the horses know to follow each other. And about halfway through the ride, my horse stopped at a tree and rubbed its bridle off. And I was just sitting there with the horse munching on grass and on a tree without a bridle on. And when I went back at the end of this, obviously the trail riding leader got off and got the bridle back on immediately, and it was fine. Nothing happened. But when I told my mom this story, I think she was like thinking that that was going to turn me off of horses for the rest of my life. Because she was like, so, do you want to go back and do it again? And I was like, yes, I want to go back now and do it again. So it actually backfired. Her plan backfired. I ended up, I think she realized at that point it was like pointless to try and stop it because it was going to happen one way or another. So for, I don't know if it was my 7th or my 8th birthday. Maybe I was 6 when I went on this trail ride. Either way, either my 7th or my 8th birthday, she bought me a riding lesson at a local stable with the lady who became my first trainer. And it was a really nice place to grow up and ride because it wasn't your typical huge lesson barn. It was a small like backyard barn, kind of like I have. She had 5 horses there, all Appaloosas. They were the best horses ever. And I was with her all the way up until high school. I rode with her. So yeah, I started off riding there. She was mainly a, she taught us to ride English, but she also rode Western and stuff. And we did small local shows, like 4-H shows, but mainly I learned how to ride English in my first years, did horse camp like every other kid. And I did that with her through, like I said, I think my freshman year of high school. And I also leased horses from her starting when I was like 12 years old. I leased a couple of her horses. Right? I just needed to switch my saddle around. And then at a certain point, her horses had gotten to be in their 20s, and she had kind of said to me that it was probably time for me to start looking for another place to ride because I was getting like more, my riding was more advanced and the horses weren't able to sort of keep up with it anymore. But that said, I continued to work for her and take care of her horses when she was on vacation all the way through college and beyond. And I still talk to her to this day. She's a close friend of the family, and I'm super thankful to her for everything she did to teach me about horses because she was one of those people who didn't just teach us how to ride. She taught us everything about horse care. So I learned so much about caring for sick horses and caring for injured horses, and it was always very horse focused at her barn. It was like your horse comes first, riding comes second. Riding actually came last. I mean, there were a whole lot of things that came before riding. So she taught us all the really, really good like life skills of owning a horse, not just like the riding piece. So I'm really grateful for that. After her barn, I moved on to another barn that belonged to a friend of the family. She showed and trained horses on the Pinto circuit. So all the horses at the barn were horses with color. Most of them were registered paint horses and double registered Pinto paint. And she had a whole bunch of kids my age that had their own horses that they showed once a month on the Pinto circuit. They also would go to the national show every year. And it was just a different environment for me because my old environment hadn't been extremely like show focused. It had been more just riding focused. And it did take me a little bit of time to sort of get used to a more rigorous training style. I definitely came home from a lot of lessons crying, feeling like I wasn't good enough, but I learned a lot. I learned a lot about riding more difficult horses because the horses at my first trainer's barn were obviously more beginner friendly, and I was not used to riding horses that were not beginner friendly. So it really helped improve my horsemanship. I leased a bunch of horses from her, and then when I was 15, that was when I bought Chief. Although before Chief, I had had the opportunity to lease a really nice quarter horse mare from her and had done some showing with her. at this point, because they showed on the Pinto circuit. If you've never showed on a breed circuit, the difference between that and like other types of showing is that typically, in a lot of cases, you're showing both English and Western, and a lot of these breed shows are multiple days. So these were Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and they would have like all kinds of classes. They would have hunter jumpers, they would have dressage, they'd have the typical English eck and hunter under saddle classes. They had Western pleasure classes, they had ranch classes, trail classes, like you name it, we did it. So it was a really good experience because I'd never really ridden Western before this particular barn. And I found that I actually really enjoyed it more than English in a lot of ways. Although I do really feel like I practice both now. I primarily ride Western now, but I do ride English sometimes, and I still jump sometimes because I just feel like it makes my riding better. It makes me a better rider overall. So I'm really thankful that I had the opportunity to do both. But when I turned 15, my parents finally said that as long as I had a job and I could pay for most of it myself, that they felt that I was committed enough to my riding to have my own horse. And it took us about a year of looking at different horses to find Chief. When I bought him, he was a yearling, but he was about to turn 2. So he turned 2 in January. I bought him in December, just after Christmas. When I say I bought, I should say that my parents significantly helped out by buying my first horse for me. And then from there, the responsibility was mine to pay for his board. I worked off most of my board so that I didn't have to pay for it. So I did a lot of cleaning stalls, and I worked off my lessons, and then I also worked as a bagger at Stop and Shop to earn extra money to pay for things for him. I also still worked for my first trainer, taking care of her animals when she was away and stuff, to earn extra money. So I was working hard, but it taught me like a lot of really good life lessons that like I wouldn't have learned if I didn't have horses. You know, I learned a lot about responsibility and hard work and the worth of $1, and I think horses are really good for that. But anyways, long story short, Chief was the first horse I had ever really trained from the ground up. So when he came home, we did a lot of groundwork with him, and I made lots of mistakes starting him under saddle for the first time. Obviously, I had my trainer helping and showing me what to do, but it was still it was new for me, and I'm really glad I had the opportunity to do it. But shortly after getting him, I decided that I really wasn't into the hardcore showing stuff anymore, and so from there I just moved on to a bunch of different barns. To make a really long story short, when Chief turned 4, he went through a really difficult phase that I wasn't really equipped at the time to handle because I had not dealt with a lot of young horses. And that was where all the natural horsemanship stuff started, because my original trainer, the first one, had a woman staying with her, training her horse that summer, who was a Pirelli certified trainer. So, and I don't ascribe to any one method of training. Now it's kind of what works for the horse, but Pirelli was where I actually started. She came and she helped me with Chief and with all the issues he was having, and it really opened my eyes to what training horses could be, and that is what started me on the path that I'm on today, doing a lot of groundwork and bareback and bridleless riding and trick training and like all of the stuff I do with my horses today. And I've learned so much since then. I'm worlds apart from where I started, but everyone has to start somewhere is my point. But that is what started me on my path to being interested in horse training and horse psychology and caring more about the relationship with the horse than the actual riding piece. So yeah, I mean, that was that. It's a very typical, I feel like, story that a lot of people have. Like, they were interested in horses as a kid and they started riding in a barn. Like, I have a very typical story. I feel very fortunate for the way I grew up riding. I had some really great trainers, some really great mentors, especially once I got to the place of actually training horses. Like, I had some amazing mentors, and I also learned a lot by trial and error, but I would not be where I am today without supportive trainers and trainers who pushed me a little bit when they knew I needed pushing, and supportive parents who were always sort of like, my parents were always supportive, but I guess you'd call it like, I don't know, cautiously supportive. Like they were always afraid something was going to happen to me with the horses, and it's a valid concern. Horses are dangerous at times, and they are very expensive, but they were still extremely supportive, even though skeptically supportive. That's what I was looking for. But I am grateful that they enabled me to do what I was able to do. And not only that, but they didn't just pay for everything outright, so that I didn't just think that everything was going to get handed to me. I'm very grateful for that. Was it hard? I mean, when I was in college and I had Chief, I had seriously had to consider selling him or leasing him out, because it's hard to be a college student and afford a horse. But you know what? I just decided that it was going to be tough, but I went to school full time and I worked 4 jobs. I worked 1 job for my dad's tech company at home. It was like a data job where I was doing quality control, so I did that in the evenings. I also worked at 2 different barns, so I was working off my board, and I was working for my first trainer, taking care of her animals fairly often. And I was also working at a vet tech job. So I had 4 jobs going on. I'm a musician, so I was playing in 4 different ensembles at the college, and still finding time to ride my horse and studying and going to class. It was a lot, but it was worth it for me. It's not always worth it for everybody. Like some people, that is a lot. You know, I'm not saying that everybody should do that, but I am saying like I was motivated because I really enjoyed riding and I loved my horse, and I didn't want to have to sell him. But that's not to say like if you're a college student and you're not able to do that and you have to sell your horse, I understand. Like I'm not saying that everybody should do what I do and like keep their horse. You have to keep your horse, but yeah, I mean, so that's kind of like the backstory. It's a very typical backstory. In terms of how I got here to having multiple horses and having my barn, I saved like crazy when I was in college, even in high school. Any money I had that I didn't spend on my horse and on bills went into a savings account. And like I said, I was working a lot of hours. When I eventually did get out of college, I was working a crap ton, and just squirreling all my money away, working off my board so I didn't have to pay for my board for my horse because that's a significant expense. I was very fortunate to find my husband, who also was like that when he was young, just saved a ton of money. Our first apartment together, I should also say that I never boarded at like the biggest, most beautiful facilities. I did for 1 year. I was an instructor at a huge barn that had a big indoor and a really nice facility, and unfortunately that shut down, but I was able to keep my horse there for free. So that's the only time I ever had an indoor. Everywhere else, you know, I was choosing places that were inexpensive. The care was good, but they were inexpensive, more backyard barn type of situations. So that really helped me cut down on the costs of owning a horse too. And then on my husband's end, he was also somebody who had really saved a lot of money. And when we first moved in together, we were like, we're gonna find the cheapest, crappiest apartment that we can possibly find so we can save up a ton of money to put a down payment on a property, because we knew we wanted to have property for the horses. We were able to save up enough money for our first down payment, I think within 2 or 3 years of being together. I will also say though that like we lived so frugally. We did not go out to concerts. We never went out to dinner. We never got takeout food. We never went out to dinner. We always bought food in bulk. We made sure that we were just very frugal about everything we did. We did not spend any unnecessary money because we had a goal in mind. And I think sometimes when people see like people in a spot that they want to be in, they think, oh, wouldn't that be nice? As though those people just were handed that opportunity. And that's not the case. there are a lot of people who aren't willing to give up going out to dinner or going out for drinks, or getting a coffee every morning. We did none of that. I mean, we literally home cooked all of our meals. We ate very simply, very cheaply. We didn't spend any extra money when we didn't have to. In terms of buying clothing, like, we wear our clothing until we can't wear it anymore. And I know to some people that sounds like, oh, I would hate to live like that, but we had a goal in mind of what we wanted that was bigger, which was having our own property. And we ended up buying our first property, which was like a little 3-acre property. There was no barn on it at the time. The house was in need of a lot of work, and we put all the work into the house. We built a really cute little property, which, if you've been here for a while and you saw my old vlogs, you saw our old property. And then because we did such a nice job on that house, we were able to flip it 3 years later for a decent profit, which allowed us to buy our current property. So that's how I got where I am today. You know, I had all of the education growing up, and I'm always trying to further my education with horses. I trained horses for quite some time professionally. I also taught lessons professionally. I'm a licensed riding instructor in Massachusetts. You have to be licensed in Massachusetts in order to teach. It's one of the only states, I think, that has that requirement. So, you know, I did all of that, but I was also working my tail off at multiple jobs. And even when I was an instructor, I was teaching full-time as a school teacher in middle school. I was a science teacher, so we worked hard, and it was difficult. We were tired. I mean, I was getting up at like 4 a.m. at our first property to feed our horses to get to work on time, and then from work I'd go straight to teach lessons, and then I'd come home and have to do all the stuff with our horses. So it was a lot. But all of that hard work up front helped get us to a place today where we're more comfortable. I don't have to work 4 jobs. I have 1 job. My husband has 1 job, and we're able to spend the time on our property that we want, but we still work hard. And this property wasn't a dream property when we bought it either. We put a lot of time and effort into fixing the house and fixing the barn, and we still have tons of work to go. So it just kind of depends on like what you want to do, and if you're willing to get your hands dirty and live simply, you can achieve a lot. You just have to keep that goal in mind and remind yourself like why you're not going out with friends on the weekends, and like why you don't go and grab your coffee at Starbucks every morning, and you know, that kind of stuff. So anyways, I think I got my tack pretty clean, which I'm excited about. The reins look significantly better. I hope you enjoyed that tack talk. I know these talks are kind of rambly, but I think they're kind of fun to do because it gives me an opportunity to sit and chat with you guys. Hopefully my next video will be like a riding update video for Bean, but I'd like to take that video in the field like I have for the other 2 horses, and our field is currently just muck. Like it's bad. You can't ride in it. So I will be riding horses in the round pen to keep them in shape and stuff, but I just don't get the best footage out there. So keep an eye out for that video. I hope you enjoyed this one, and I hope this gave you some insight into like how I got where I am today, because I have in the very far past had comments from people saying like, I just want to be where you're at right now, like with the barn and everything, and I thought telling the story would help you see that it wasn't like overnight. It took a long time to get here, and I also want to remind you guys that I'm 35 years old. So, you know, I'm not in my early 20s. When I was in my early 20s, I was struggling like everybody else. I was in grad school until I was 25. So I didn't really get a good head start in life until I was in my later 20s. We didn't buy our first house until we were in our late 20s. So just keep that in mind, that my timeline doesn't have to be your timeline. Maybe you are able to get your first property much younger than I was, or maybe it takes you longer. Everybody's circumstances are different, and that's okay. Just like keep your goal in mind, and if you keep tunnel vision on that goal, you can get there. You just have to have the motivation to like get through the hard times, because we struggled a lot. But because we got through the struggle, and we still struggle, trust me, having a small child and having this big property is a struggle most days, but I'm glad we are where we are. So anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.